Welcome back to the Quantum Cave. I'm Mike Longo, and sitting with me is Glen Quansy. Today we are remembering Ray Bradbury, who just recently passed away. Glen and I are huge fans of Ray, and we just wanted to say a few words. Glen, Ray's work had significant influence on you.
In my life, yeah. He's like one of the main influences on me in a lot of ways. My thinking, my philosophy, having read his stuff has really affected me. Started reading him probably when I was 13 or 14 at least.
Do you remember the first story you read?
I believe it was The Pedestrian. I believe that was actually in one of the English textbooks at the school I was going to. I had a habit of, teachers would, they pass out these textbooks at the beginning of the year, and they have a bunch of stories in them, and the teacher decides which ones she's going to use and assigns them, and you read them, and you have to answer the questions at the end or whatever, and maybe discuss in class or whatever. The story was called The Pedestrian, and I don't even believe it was assigned, but I would read through the books. I would find what I wanted to read and go ahead and read it, even though it wasn't assigned. And that story was in one of these books, and I read it, and I just remember it really resonated with me, because even as a young child, there were nights when I just couldn't stand being in the house anymore.
Sure.
I mean, I was the middle kid of five, and sometimes you just want to get away from the family and everything.
But Ray was an escape for you.
He was an escape for me, but also he wrote about things that it seemed like he knew me in a way, because I used to go out walking at night, and I would walk up and down the streets, and I would see in people's windows this flickering blue light that, it was their TVs. Everybody's watching TV, and there were, back then, instead of dish antennas and cable and stuff, we had actual TV antennas, and every house had a TV antenna on it. And I remember, for some reason, that image stuck with me. And then when I read The Pedestrian, Ray Bradbury had that exact image. He described that. And it was a story about a man who's out walking, and he sees in every home this flickering blue light, and he sees all the antennas on top like a forest. I think he referred to it like a forest. He was very poetic. And the image just resonated with me because, yeah, I've seen that, and I've thought about that myself. And, of course, the story ends up with the guy being hauled away because he's weird and different and he's not home watching TV. So he gets picked up and hauled away. I believe that's the way the story ends. It's been quite a few years since I read it. And then that was like in high school, early high school. And then later on, years later, I went up to Southern Utah State College for a couple of years. And I still had this habit of walking by myself at night. And so, here I am, a kid from Southern California, and this was a period when a lot of us, we wore our blue jeans and work shirts and grew our hair long and stuff. I wasn't really a hippie ever, but I was growing a beard for the first time in my life. It was my first time away from home, so I was just experimenting with things as far as how I would look and how I would feel. And I'm out walking the streets, the main street of Cedar City, Utah, this little town. And the police actually, a patrol car starts following me, and eventually they pull over and they question me. It's like, what are you doing out this late? How come you're not home?
That's right.
Everybody else is home.
You were living the story.
I was living the story. It happened to me. It was like here I am considered weird because I'm out walking late at night instead of home where you should be. And the police. That made me suspect. Just being out walking made me suspect. Well, and being dressed like a kid from Southern California, probably in Utah. But
that would do it.
So again, there again in my life, that immediately brought up the idea. Oh, the pedestrian! It's happening to me. I was wondering if I was going to get arrested for walking. Right?
You never know.
So yeah, so Bradbury touched me that way, and I remember one of the first stories I tried writing was very Bradbury-ish. It was it would have fit in with his Mars stories. It was like I was trying to channel Bradbury, and so big influence.
You've seen him a few times.
I've
Speak.
I heard him speak at Mount San Antonio College. They had a Writers' Day conference. I don't know if they still do it. It used to be an annual thing.
Was he the only author?
No, there were several authors. They had for journalism. They had critics, and Harlan Ellison was there, and they were sort of a double team. Harlan Ellison, Ray Bradbury, which is so interesting because Bradbury is so. They're both very poetic in their own way. They both use language in very, I want to say colorful, but it's not really colorful.
Well, Ellison would be the colorful one.
Well, yeah, but they both are very dramatic.
Yeah, they're very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
But it is interesting because, my perception of Ray Bradbury is he's very pleasant and kind of mellow, and then the contrast is with Ellison is really in your face.
In your face dynamic, yeah, Pitbull kind of thing. And he probably wouldn't mind someone saying that because he knows.
He'd say, "Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. You bet I am. I was a tough kid."
Yeah, and he was too, and that's interesting too. Their backgrounds growing up. As far as contrast goes, because from what I've read about Bradbury, he had a fairly idyllic childhood. He had loving family around him and stuff like that, and he grew up at least part of the time in small town America, whereas Ellison his family were the only Jews in town, and he got beat up every day at school, and the social forces that he grew up with were pushing him to go out in the world and to fight back and stuff. Whereas Bradbury was more like cradled and comfortable in a way, which would show that their outlooks. Bradbury's a little more. He's a lot more positive. A lot more. His stories quite often are kind of a positive feeling about what could happen. That good people, if they act morally, will have a good world. Ellison is more like, 99% of people are idiots, and the world is going to hell, and there's nothing any of us can do about it. And so there, kind of a thing, and that's kind of their different. That's what comes across. They're very different that way. And I had never really seen Ellison before. I hadn't read a lot of his stuff. I actually had probably been exposed to it and influenced by him. I didn't know it until years later. I'm actually just finding out even now as I read things about him and about what he's done, that he wrote a lot of episodes of television shows that I watched growing up, and I had no idea, that he was the person writing these things. Route 66 I watched as a child. Alfred Hitchcock Hour I watched. Twilight Zone, Outer Limits. Mm-hmm. And not just science fiction stuff. I mean, he wrote, like I said, Route 66, which is more of a realistic drama kind of a thing. I mean, he wrote a lot of stuff for a lot of shows that I wasn't aware of until now. I mean, I knew, oh yeah, he did Star Trek, Sitting on the Edge of Forever, and he did this and he did that, but mostly the science fiction-y, fantasy kind of stuff that I was into. I didn't realize that he was also writing these other shows that I had seen, and that I can remember them, that obviously he also struck a chord in me. There was something he was saying, but for him, from him, it was more of like a part of he was exposing me to parts of the world that I had never seen, because I grew up more like Bradbury, whereas Bradbury was small town America, I was suburban, large town, a suburb of Los Angeles. West Covina is pretty much where I grew up. And my family was not touchy-feely, loving, supportive. They were, they loved me, but there was a disconnect, an emotional disconnect. So I was different from either of them, and yet I had some things in common with both of them. Ellison's childhood wasn't quite so happy, neither was mine, but for different reasons. Bradbury grew up, family, close people, nice community. I grew up in that sort of thing, there was nobody I was not of any sort of ethnicity or whatever that anybody would come after me or beat me up, and also being tall and blue-eyed and broad-shouldered, and having a tendency to smile a lot. I think a lot of people just, they accepted me. Wherever I went and whoever I was around, I always seemed to be accepted. They didn't know me. A lot of them didn't even try to get to know me, but they immediately accepted me. So I had it a lot easier than Ellison, that's for sure. And in a way, I think was not a good thing, because whereas Ellison was pushed out into the world and forced almost to become what he was, and then Bradbury was loved and nurtured and had this hopefulness that he wanted to share with the world. I was just sort of caught between things. But yeah, so when I went to see them at Mount San Antonio College, they did it as a sort of a tag team thing. Bradbury got up and spoke first, and then Ellison got on stage with him and took over. And Bradbury got up, and the thing that has stuck in my head to this day is Bradbury said towards the end of his lecture or speech or whatever you want to call it, he said, I guarantee you that if you write, what was it? It was like 300 to 500 words a day every day of the year. By the end of the year, you're going to have 364 pieces of crap, but you're going to have one good story. And that was Bradbury, which that's actually very positive, in a way. I mean, yeah, you write every day, just through sheer volume, you're going to come up with something good. And of course, you'll have the practice and everything. And it was all very positive and very like, do this. He was very like, don't go out and have lunch with your friends. You stay home and you write. Just write. And here he is lecturing at a college, and he said something about, don't take college classes on writing because you can't learn writing from people. You have to write.
You have to do it.
You have to do it. It's something you have to do.
You have to put in your time.
Yeah, so don't waste time taking writing classes. So, which was what I was doing at Mount San Antonio College at the time. I was taking a writing class. But so he did that. And then right after he finished with that sort of a statement, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but it was something about if you write it, every day, blah, blah, blah. Ellison hops up on the stage next to him and immediately goes, you know what? I think your opinion of these people is way too high. And he's like, let me tell you, out of all of you people in this room, I doubt any of you will ever become writers. Because you don't have the brains for it, and you don't have the discipline, and blah. I mean, he just immediately went on. He's like a firecracker exploding. I mean, it was just he got up there and just